So welcome, everybody. Welcome back to our conversation, and thank you also for your very insightful letter and questions, because it has given us a good place to work from in figuring out what we can do, what's possible from IIE, and also what we can ask for from ECA, from US government. So the structure, for those who may be not familiar, IIE is the managing entity of Fulbright. So we are an NGO, and US government, Department of State, has the policies that govern the Fulbright program. And we work together to form and underwrite. They write the grants and we manage them. So there's a lot of policies and regulations and ways of navigating them. And all of your questions were very, very insightful, and we want to offer as much support as we can. So in the past week, I've touched base with several different individuals, experts at the highest levels of IIE, including your current advising team, who is represented with us today in Abby Greenwell, who's in this meeting with us to support you in your questions and also help to clarify any points that I miss or anybody needs more information about. In addition, I also communicated closely with the US government, ECA, which manages the policies of Fulbright worldwide. So the same policies are set and enacted in every country. And we worked very specifically across all of your questions in order to give the most accurate, up-to-date information that we have at our disposal. So today, the structure of this meeting, I thought would be best useful if the best use of our time if I go through the list just briefly and give a general answer, and then open the floor for questions, and Abby can help us answer some of those questions, and also Ina, who has much experience, a lot of experience with Fulbright Ukraine, and can also give us insight into these questions as well. So I will keep my part very brief. I won't reread your questions because you know them. The first involves the question of summer funding, and I think a lot of the letter really is concerned about summer funding, and ECA is looking into this, the government, on what's available. So sometimes summer funding does become available and you would all be notified. It's a transparent process, and we cannot tell yet how much funding will be available. In the past, 5 students were supported, I know, after evacuation from another country last year, but every year is different. And Ukraine is in a list, it's at the top of the list of countries to receive any extra money for summer funding if it becomes available. And I believe in addition to that, if ECA has also said, if you are having any financial difficulties right now, to work individually with your advisor and let them know so that they have specific information on your specific situation, and we can work to support you as we can. The second question is—
Hey, Jessica, can I add to that a little bit?
Please,
from
yes,
the advising
please.
perspective?
Please,
So,
yes. Yes.
So I'm sorry, just to give context, I'm an assistant director of advising based in the US, and I supervise many of your direct IIE advisors. So I have seen your names in emails, and I understand some of the situations, of course, not in depth like your IIE advisor would. So I just wanted to say that just to the funding point, one of the things that happens during the spring, and I know you all have met with your IIE advisors. If you haven't, please let me know right away, or let Jessica know, and we can connect you right away. But one of the things we discuss in depth is that funding summer component. And I know that many people have been fortunate to get internships or paid internships, but just to point out what Jessica is saying, if you're having trouble getting funding, whether it's on-campus positions or a paid internship, flag it to your advisor right away, right? So this information is, as Jessica says, going directly to the program sponsor in those budget considerations. In my experience, I just want to be careful to say, usually these budget decisions come at the last minute. And it's not meaning to, of course, it causes stress and duress. And I'm sorry about that, but the process is a little bit slow. So until then, just thank you for keeping your IIE advisors really closely updated about your progress and your funding concerns for this summer, because we want to ensure that there is support budgetarily. That request is being made for funding. And we will follow on with any guidance and next steps. Sorry, Jessica, go ahead.
No, thanks. Thanks for following up. I empathize with all of you. I was not so long ago a scholar myself for many years in a doctoral program where there was no summer funding ever between years, and we had to compete for grants and write a lot of grants. And then entering the postdoc world, and after finishing one postdoc, not knowing where the next one would be and moving to a different country. So I know how stressful this time of year is as you're planning your summer. But the good thing is you guys are all here on this call and you're getting proactive. So you're doing what you need to be doing. And I'm very happy that you wrote that letter and you're thinking through very clearly where you need to be. Number 3 in the letter is about IIE's Emergency Student Fund. IIE student funds cannot be applied to Fulbrighters because of US government policy. It's not an IIE policy. ECA does not allow us to give any grants from the Emergency Student Fund to our Fulbrighters. So we can't change that. There's not much we can do, but what I can say is that the student fund is helping a lot of Ukrainians in the US. Right now, the total amount raised is $700,000. This week, 225 Ukrainian students will receive grants in a total of $450,000 that's paid out of that 700. In the network, there are 1,300 institutions globally, and 1,000 of them are in the US. So many universities have joined the member network, and all universities are welcome to join. If there is a financial constraint that prevents a university from being able to join the network, oftentimes that is discussed and sometimes waived, so the university can become a member and then nominate their students they would like to nominate for the Emergency Student Fund. So if there are other Ukrainian students on your campus who are not Fulbrighters, who need help, this is a great way to get those resources to them. So please share that with your communities in your campus and beyond your campus as well, that IIE wants and is continuing to disperse this funding to Ukrainian students in the US, but we unfortunately cannot give it to Fulbrighters due to government policy. Number 4, guidelines on J1 visas. This might be a good place for Abby to note for us where the guidance is, because there is guidance out there. Abby, do you have any insight on that?
Yeah. So J1 visas can expire without consequence while you're in the US. So I think that it's just really important for me to say that again. J1 visas can expire without consequence while you're in the US. A J-1 visa is the key to enter the US, but the DS 2019, the extended DS 2019, is your permission to stay. You do not need to go for a special visa renewal appointment abroad because your visa expires, as long as your DS 2019 has been extended. Now, I think your funding questions, right, go hand in hand here, because I know that there's a summer funding component. So some people who already have, secured internships or other funding sources maybe have already received their extended DS 2019s, and some people are still waiting and are a part of that budget request. So I just want to repeat that you don't have to make a special trip. Your DS 2019 will be extended once all of the budget information for the summer has been clarified, and sponsor has given us guidance about that. Now, some of you may want to take trips because of your family situation, because you want to take those trips to see them. I want to repeat that right now, it's sort of a huge firestorm of issues because, of course, US embassies abroad have been overwhelmed since the COVID pandemic started, yes, because many of those visa renewal appointments were canceled or had to be moved, and there's an extreme, well, not extreme, it depends on the US embassy, but there are some backlogs. So be aware that if you choose to take that trip, that you may run into some delays in getting your visa renewal appointment, okay? The other thing is that if you are, and we'll get into TPS later, I know this is a topic for later, but if you are considering applying for TPS when that application posts, please review the eligibility information. There is information in there about continued presence in the US after that's announced. We do not advise on TPS. We'll get into that more later, but I just, in tandem with this idea about renewing J-1 visas and taking a trip, an international trip to do that, please just make sure that you are reviewing the TPS guidelines if that is something that in the future you may apply for. Okay, so again, you don't have to take that trip. Some of you may be considering it. And I saw some of you nod about going to visit family members. Of course, family support, friend support during this time, I realize is some of utmost importance in being able to be with people who can relate to what you're going through. I just want to caution that you might run into delays. And of course, the Fulbright program has been encouraging people to not take international trips, or if you do, just carefully consider all of the barriers. I would recommend, and Jessica and the team probably know more about this process than me, but whatever US embassy you're considering applying for that visa renewal, contact them in advance, explain your situation, try to make that appointment in advance so you don't run into delays in returning to your academic program in the fall.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, and in addition to the eligibility issues with TPS, which again, we cannot advise on immigration. We are not working at all with the Department of Homeland Security, which is responsible for all immigration to and from the US. But we do know some things that maybe we can help you, just like we're flagging right now as a tip. If you are really considering TPS, that leaving the US could make you ineligible. But again, we are not lawyers, we are not immigration officers, so you will have to look at the eligibility and navigate your situation as best suits you. And about traveling to see other family members or assist them, if there is an emergency situation that you need to leave the US to deal with, and this can be defined by you, talk to us on a case-by-case basis, and we will work with you to make sure that you have what you need to take care of emergency situations. You are not trapped. There are lots of ways to move forward, but if you just want to go to Italy to see the Vatican and then, go back and because there's a shorter line to apply for a visa, there's no way that we can advocate for you to get funding for accommodation for that. But certainly we can advocate and will advocate for you to accommodate you in reasonable circumstances. So please, reach out to us and let us know what's going on, and we will work with you. Number 7 was about TPS, which I'm going to also defer to Abby on, because she knows a little bit more about the US context with this, but we'll do our best. But before we get to that, there was a question that maybe Ina can help us with, also about the requirements on a minimum grade for your visa. There was a question about a minimum B grade, but actually I've been informed there's no minimum B Fulbright requirement. It's just satisfactory academic progress, which is set forth in the Fulbright policies. And the 3.0 is a J1 immigration visa regulation, but ultimately Fulbright will defer to the university's requirements.
And this is very important to stay in touch with your IIE advisor, right? Because of course, we know that your mind may be elsewhere. It may be very difficult to focus on your academics. I hope that you will also, depending upon your circumstance and your relationship with your academic advisor on campus, stay closely in touch with them and your professors, explaining the situation. Sometimes there's a lot of flexibility about, taking perhaps an incomplete to continue working on some grade requirement or class requirements, or I know for Fulbright, you can request a reduced course load or take a personal leave of absence if that's something that you need to do. So just to repeat, of course, academic progress is important, and it's also important to get the support you need, right? So if you need more time, ask for it. If you need a reduced course load and need approval, from Fulbright, talk to your IIE advisor. We have the form, we can walk you through that process. If you feel like everything's too overwhelming, you're not really sure about the future, and you need to take a break from your academic program, your Fulbright program here, talk to your IIE advisor. We'll work very closely with you, with the academic department, and of course with program sponsors to submit that request and help you through that process.
Thank you, Abby, for that information. Ina, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I just can repeat that you need to apply to your IIE advisors and academic advisors, because they know the requirements. They will let you know when you can retake your exams or how much time you will get in autumn, or by what would be the deadline in September, October, when you can take your exams with better results. I do not think that this will influence your extension for the next academic year. We had several situations, maybe just a few, but students successfully took their exams with much more better results. So their grant was continued, their stipend was given for another year. I do not see that this situation can somehow influence your study program and staying in the US. But please consult with your IE and academic advisors.
Thank you. And the last point about the TPS, I think we've covered the main areas that we needed to cover, but I want to open the floor just generally to everyone here and see, because we just covered a lot of information. I don't want to overwhelm you. Does anybody have questions for us?
Because I'm the only one researcher in this group, I think I would like to ask a short question. Considering TPS, you are saying that you're suggesting not, you kind of suggest not to apply for TPS, or you cannot suggest whether to apply or not. But in my case, I already addressed this question to Ina. In my case, I cannot prolong J1 visa because my program ends. And as I can see, TPS is the only option for me to prolong my stay in the US or get work permission. Otherwise, I have nowhere to go except of coming back to Ukraine or finding some other, or applying for any kind of other protection status in European Union. But considering that I'm already here, I would like to know if I have any other options that could help me like stay or get work permission. And another question that I addressed to Ina was, considering that if I want to visit my relatives before my program ends, so that I can return back, if I will apply for temporary protected status, I won't have a chance to travel anywhere. So I will have to be on spot, which means that I want to, before my program ends, I want to fly to see my relatives and to fly back. And I was asking if it's possible to fund the flights. For example, I can afford going back, but if I will pay for TPS, which is 500, and also work permit, which is 150, and also if I will ask some lawyer for the consultancy, it will cost additionally. So I will have the last stipend only to cover all these expenses. I don't want to end my program before the end term, but I want just to have this possibility to fly to see my relatives and to go back to finish my studies.
Mm-hmm. So you have your J1 visa to cover the end of your period of study.
Yeah, right.
Beyond your period of study, you become, you can continue potentially your grant, maybe apply for an extension if funding becomes available, and extend your J1 visa to stay in the US beyond the term of your exchange. You have to deal with US immigration. The reason we cannot advise on your choices are because we are under Department of State, so we are not allowed to recruit any of our grantees as immigrants to the US, or to argue for our grantees to have any kind of visa other than the J1 visa for legal reasons, because we are a totally different part of the government. But if you are, applying for TPS and you need to see your relatives, or you need to make exceptions, you need to ask Department of Homeland Security Immigration and explain the situation to them. I know the whole situation is difficult, but from my side, I can do nothing to advocate for your immigration case, because I'm completely banned from intervening for legal reasons. But your advisor at IIE may have other information. Abby, have you any experience with other citizens applying for TPS from other countries?
Yep. So let's rewind a little bit. Okay, so first, visiting student researchers. In general, the line that you're going to get from your advisor, Lisa, is extensions are not possible, right? Because this is in general for the visiting student researcher program, extensions are not possible. However, I don't know your individual situation, right? Like, have you been able to make all research progress that you set out in the beginning? Or have you encountered any barriers, or are there some things you need to continue to work on to meet the goals of your Fulbright program? If so, I would continue to ask Lisa what the request process would be. Your academic advisor, or sorry, faculty host, will also have to weigh in about, yes, this has been accomplished, but this has not been accomplished, and additional time would help with the overall goal set forth in the application for the visiting student researcher originally. So that's just a note about the program in general. The answer is always going to be no. However, you can make the argument, right, along with your faculty host, if additional research time is needed to accomplish the goals of your program. So that's just under the Fulbright, right, umbrella, how that request process goes for visiting student researchers. And as Jessica rightly points out, part of it is, of course, budget considerations at the sponsor, right, with the overall program budget. Okay, so that's the extension process. TPS, I think that there's a lot of anxiety and confusion around TPS right now because, and this is not unusual, when it's announced, it generally then takes 4 weeks to 8 weeks for the application to actually get posted on the website. So when you go to visit, just Google TPS and go to the USCIS section that addresses it, you won't yet see Ukraine listed. You also won't see Afghanistan listed, which that TPS was announced shortly thereafter. So your IIE advisor, much like Jessica, we cannot advise about J1 visa regulations. We're not your best legal resource for questions about TPS, asylum, or any other status. You are within your rights, absolutely, to consult with legal advice and to decide what's appropriate for your personal situation. Many universities have, for instance, law clinics available to students, and they may also have legal resources and referrals they can make. How to get in touch with those? Well, you can, of course, contact the international office at the university. They don't administer the Fulbright program, and they may be able to provide more detailed resources for you and your local situation, if that's what you decide to do. So I hope that helps. Now, to your question about travel, I hope it came through earlier. I'm going to say it again. We're advising strongly against travel during your program because of these delays that people are experiencing. Now, your visa might be valid, and you might not have difficulty returning.
I'm sorry for interrupting. I understand that, but along with that, you still had to cover the flight back to Ukraine. But what if I cannot fly back to Ukraine? I just and I don't want to end up my program earlier, but my visa will end and I won't have a chance to see my relatives if I will apply for any other like kind of protected status, which means that I cannot fly. You don't recommend me to fly before my program ends. So does this mean that it's impossible to cover my flight because I will not fly anywhere? My program will end. I will be waiting for protected status and will not meet with my relatives. So do I understand you right?
The return flight benefit is for the return home at the end of your program. I'm sorry, maybe I misunderstood that you wanted to travel before the end of your program. Is that right?
Yes, I mean that at the end of the program, I won't have a chance to fly back because we have war in Ukraine. I want to have possibility to work and to support my family financially. That's why I would consider staying in the US and applying for the protected status. If my program will end and I won't have a chance to fly back to Ukraine, which means that you won't cover this flight. So I was just wondering if it's possible that you will cover the flight that will happen prior the end of the program so that I can meet with my relatives, can come back and can apply for the protected status and stay in the US unless I receive it.
So yeah, the return flight is for the purposes of departing at the end of your program. and other types of travel are not typically covered.
Another then question: if I will decide to go back to go back after the end of the program, you will cover my flight to any place in Europe, because flights to Ukraine won't be available yet.
Yes, yes. Talk
Yeah.
to your IIE advisor.
Yes, you can fly to a different place in Europe. The reason we cannot add additional costs for TPS is because we cannot fund immigration, because legally we could be accused of recruiting immigrants to the US, which is not what we are doing. We are an educational exchange program. We cannot fund immigration. TPS is a tool of immigration. So if you would like legal help and you're experiencing worry about finding and applying for TPS correctly, I can just offer insight that there are a lot of volunteer immigrant lawyers who would be willing to help you for free. And some of them right now, I even know personally, who are working in the Ukraine diaspora very actively in different associations and NGOs. So you would be able to find better advice, professional advice on TPS that you can get for free. And I'm happy to connect you to those volunteer lawyers and NGOs. But from Fulbright, we definitely cannot get involved with US immigration, because legally we are banned from doing that. So it's a separate process, and any money that is used to fund that process can't come from us. But there are people who want to support you, and we can connect you to those people.
I would highly appreciate it. Any useful contacts. Thanks.
Sure, absolutely.
I have a question too, about transferring to any kind of Europe. If when the application process for TPS is open and I apply for it, receive it, because my program ends in August, so I think I will be able to receive it before the program ends. My question is, will Fulbright be able to transfer me or in Ukraine or any kind of European country if, for example, I will stay here according to my TPS status for, I don't know, for example, a couple months, and somewhere in October or in September or in November, I don't know, I will decide that I need to come more close to home, or actually, if it's possible to go home, will Fulbright like transfer me, or the possibility of being transferred by Fulbright to other continent is available only during the just when the program ends and during the first month after the program ends, because we raised this topic before and there were no sure answer if Fulbright will transfer us if we stay for some more time according to TPS status here after program ends.
Can you tell me what you mean by transfer? Do you mean
Flight.
a ticket? Oh, ticket. Okay.
Ticket, yeah.
Okay, so how TPS typically works, you received an email, I think from us at the beginning of March about the TPS process, or sorry, not about the process, but the fact that it was available.
Yes.
And in that email, the request was, please keep your IAE advisor updated if you plan to apply. So typically what happens is at the end of the maximum Fulbright limits, you finished your program or your research, your program is ready to end. At that time, we give it's a certain amount of money for that flight home, right? So you can keep that money and then use it for the later return if you decide to return later.
So it won't be actual ticket, it will be just the money. So I could buy the ticket by myself when I will need it.
Precisely.
Great. And one more question, because I'm a teacher back home in the university, and no one cancels my obligations that from September I have to restart working with my Ukrainian students. while I'm in the United States, if I stay here, it will be a little bit problematic because of the time difference. So I've been regarding the possibility of applying for TPS status, obtaining the job permission, and maybe, as far as understood, I'm not trapped here. I can be transferred to, for example, some European country. And I was thinking if it is possible to get some remote job here in the United States, because I actually will get this job permission. And after transferring to somewhere into Europe, continue working remotely for American company and remotely working with my students, because 1 hour the time difference make it possible. Like combining it, staying. I understand that most probably I won't be able to return in the United States because my visa, J1 visa, will be ended, will be closed. So, but still, I will have this document of job permission. Will it be possible?
That's outside of my area of expertise of, I think, any of our areas of expertise, because that is sounding like a decision that would have to be made by the employer, and I'm not sure. So you should talk to an immigration attorney about that, and that's outside of the J1 visa things that we can advise on. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. You mentioned law clinics. I can contact them through my international advisor, right? Or
Yes,
this is...
yes. And you can also, I can send an email out to all of you guys with some really good advice on some of the Ukraine immigrant communities. I have friends in Michigan at the Ukraine National Women's League of America. They're a fantastic organization. They have chapters in every city in America. And we will work through our networks, and you guys will be surprised how many people will rush to your aid. Already, I get emails from our Fulbright community, US Fulbright alumni, and also European commissions, the Fulbright commissions in all the European countries. Everyone is standing by ready to help. So you are not alone, and people are looking for you to help you. So we need to get your needs to them, and we'll help you to network your way to where you need to be. But again, we can't give the advice because we're not professionals, but we can give you contacts and networks. That's what we have at Fulbright. Welcome to the alumni community, those of you who are soon to be alumni. And those of you who are traveling to Europe, you need to know that all the Fulbright directors in all countries signed a statement of solidarity. So before you travel to any country there, please send an email to any staff member of that Fulbright country. Introduce yourself to them. Maybe go to their office if you want. They are also ready to help, and they have the best knowledge about their country. So you have a lot of power at your fingertips, all of you. So we're going to work with you and make sure that you're not feeling scared and you're not feeling alone, because you're not.
Thank you.
Do we have any more questions? Katarina and others on chat are talking here. Yep. And I don't have specific contacts of attorneys right now to give you, but I will speak with a couple of them first before I give their contacts. And I also will connect you to the universities over email, or sorry, organizations that I mentioned over email. University of Michigan has a great law clinic that does a lot of pro bono work on immigration and asylum. And I know that they even every year have Ukrainian speaking volunteers working with them. So I will look to see if they're still doing that. They were very active a few years ago, but there's resources. I just want to make sure I compile them correctly, and I'll email them to you next week.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
First of all, I would like to thank you all for caring about us and for helping. We understand that you yourself are not in the most comfortable positions right now, but you still find these emotional resources to help us. Thank you. And my question is, I mean, it's to some extent the same, but if you don't mind, I would like to ask you to generalize, to summarize, what would be your recommendations for people who graduate in May? So I think, you know, we already received our last stipend, and I don't really understand what should we do, because our visas expire in months, and I'm wondering, so some of us haven't found any place now, and this whole TPS thing, I'm a little bit worried because they haven't opened the application yet, and then you need to wait another, as you mentioned, 6 or 8 weeks. So even if we go through that process, it means that we will so we will not fulfill our immigrant requirements. I know that you said it's not up to you to recommend or something like that, but like, so what would be your general recommendations for people who graduate in May?
Yeah, that's a tricky question. You are up to the wire, as we say. The deadline is approaching.
I wish that this was the first time that this has happened. But as I mentioned, there have been other Fulbrighters in similar situations. All you have to do is look at the TPS country list, and you can see it's a hard time. So first things first, if there's any possible additional academic activities that you need to do that you haven't finished, discuss those with your advisor, IIE advisor, who can talk you through if there's a possibility of exceptional additional time to finish those academic related requirements. I'm sorry, Diana, which program are you through? Are you degree student?
Yeah.
Okay. So of course, additionally, you may have access to post-degree academic training. These can feel overwhelming to find positions, but your university campus, of course, has resources. Now, I would recommend talking to your academic advisor, the counseling center on campus, and the international office. Many universities are going above and beyond and really expressing a lot of support for their Ukrainian students on campus. And I think everyone understands the difficulty with the timing of the TPS for those graduating participants, students. So I'm sure you're doing this, but connect with them too, as they might have other connections in the community or even positions on campus that you could apply to do post-degree academic training time, and that extends your time, right? So those are the two main things that IIE advisors will recommend when thinking about this difficult timing, right? Do you have any more academic requirements to do? Talk to your academic advisor, see what else you need to wrap up. And is there any possible post-degree academic training internship positions that you could do for additional time during this time when you're trying to decide what to do? Beyond those two things, right? Other things that are outside the scope of the Fulbright program are, as we mentioned, I would recommend talking to an immigration attorney, because there may be other things that suit your needs within immigration law that are available to you that you may want to consider. Unfortunately, I can't advise on those other options or what they might be for your individual case, but certainly an immigration attorney could, and many are eager to help on a pro bono basis, as Jessica was mentioning.
I'm sorry, I have one more question. Just just in case, if you know, how long, yeah, usually it takes to get this TPS status from the moment you apply. Maybe, you know, because my international advisor, she doesn't know. I asked her.
I think that any estimate I would give you is based on other situations, other country applications. So it may not
For
be
example.
applicable for people in an emergency situation from Ukraine. So I mean, I can tell you what Burma, it took people 6 months. So again, other than that, please don't take that as expert advice, because I'm not, I mean, I'm not in a position to be able to advise you beyond, you know, what I've seen, which may not be applicable for people from Ukraine, given the emergency nature of the situation. I'm not sure if that timeline will speed up or anything like that. So I'm sorry.
Okay. Thanks.
Has anybody here been in touch with any diaspora community organizations, including maybe church groups or civic organizations?
Yeah, we have in Phoenix. We have a great support from diaspora, and they try to contact us at regular basis. But they also can tell us, like, for example, my program ends on the 30th of May. I have 1 month that I can safely stay here until the 30th of June. But I assume, and what I observe, that probably my TPS isn't going to be ready, even if I apply, like, you know, tomorrow, for example, or in a week. So then while I'm waiting for my TPS, can I stay in the States, and it will be eligible for me to stay without DS form and visa? But if I had already applied for TPS and I'm just waiting for my approval for a month or 2 or 3, maybe you know the information about that?
Mm-hmm.
That's a great question for an immigration attorney. But I can tell you, yes, in my experience, people have applied and been waiting still during that in-between time. But again, great question for an immigration attorney. From the Fulbright side, you would just let your IIE advisor know about your decision, and we would, you know, close your record at the end of your program.
Usually I'm also applying right now for temporary residence in Poland. I'm not a Polish citizen and our EU citizen. And I know that if I apply on the last day of my current visa here, I can stay until they approve my residence, and it won't be illegal. I think that's usually how it goes with all of these applications, but you'll want to look at the Department of Homeland Security website, because you can answer that question pretty quickly just by going to the website and seeing what information is there for other countries that recently had temporary protected status, because that information will be the same for Ukraine. And it's my guess, but don't take my word, you need to look at the website. It's my guess that if you submit your application before your current visa expires, then you won't be in the US illegally. You'll just be waiting for a decision on your status. They can't deport you, for example, if you have a case number. So if you submit your application, you have a case number, and then you're just waiting for a decision. That's usually how it goes. But I'm not giving you official advice. You need to go to the website. And in terms of civic organizations in the diaspora, I think everybody here might consider looking at credit unions for financial assistance as well, because they have microcredit. They don't require a lot of background documents, and it's very easy to find some financial local credit from those immigrant communities that have been helping Ukrainians for hundreds of years. So please, you know, let's all work together. It's a small world, and you're not alone. You're not the only one experiencing this. There are a lot of others around you who are going through the same thing.
Okay, thank you.
If I may ask the question, well, first of all, thank you for everything you're doing, and especially Ina, thank you for being so responsive to all of us. We really appreciate your help. I wanted to ask specifically, when will the decision about financial support through summer be available? Because we know that well, during COVID, it was available. Also, it was available for students from Afghanistan. And as you know, we already have like a lot of stuff to take care of. And it would be like of a great help to have like one last thing on our to-do list to be nervous about, especially this summer. So if you could like tell us like a specific time frame when the decision on this will be made, that would be great. Thank you.
I wish I knew, but ECA has said that there's no blanket decision that will come around. They're not going to announce that there is summer funding available. You can apply for it, and we can wait and create a list and hope that some funding comes down the pipeline, which it may, but I have no idea when that would be announced. I know that in the situation of Afghanistan, there were 5 students that received all 3 months of summer funding. I don't know if others received just 1 month, and I don't know when that was announced, but we're dealing with US government, so their funding.
Yeah, I can
it
add
can
to
be
that.
Unpredictable. Go ahead, Abby. Yeah.
Yeah, the timing has started. So all of your conversations in the spring about extensions or about renewals with your advisors, and where you discussed, do you have summer plans? Do you have summer positions that have funding, that sort of thing? All of that information is with the sponsor, right? So all of that has to be reviewed in consideration of the budget. You're right about COVID, right? About COVID times, right? Because there was a safety concern and people could not return. This is the same case now, right? There's a safety concern and people cannot return. I don't expect to get bad news, but I'm not the sponsor, right? So just know that that decision about individual grants happened later in the spring. So I would say, it happened all the way up until the grant renewal date. So just continue to stay in touch with your IIE advisor, continue to express your concerns. They know, they're aware, and they've expressed those as well. And to second what Jessica says, it takes time. And I do realize and affirm it adds to your stress level. And I'm sorry about that. If I were to say one relieving thing, it's that the Fulbright program does carefully pay attention to the safety and security of participants. And so there is a genuine effort to get the funding that people need, who need the funding, right? Some people already have positions lined up, but in the meantime, it can be incredibly hard to manage that anxiety. And I don't have any expertise in saying that, except for that I would be remiss if I didn't reiterate that there are many communities and people standing by to support you during this time. There is ASPE Assist, and I can chat in the chat the phone number that you can call. So they have 24/7 wellness, mental health, and other referral resources for you to connect with experts to help you manage the anxiety and concerns in the meantime. Also, on most university campuses, they have robust counseling centers, and a lot are experienced in dealing with such traumas. I say that knowing that it can feel like that's not going to help me. My real concern is funding. I hear you, right? In Maslow's hierarchy of needs, of course, making sure you have enough money to eat, to live, all of that is very important. In the meantime, what I hope you hear is there are people available to support you with this anxiety and uncertainty during this time.
If I may ask one more supporting question on that. So just correct me if I'm wrong, like if we understood it right. There isn't a decision right now discussed to provide the summer stipend to all of us, but rather they're discussing the possibility of creating individual funding for people who need it, right? And then if I understood this part right, does it mean that all of us need to individually apply for summer funding? And if so, what if all of us will create like a template and apply, all of us, because all of us need that. And we cannot really, if we don't have a money to live on, we cannot really take care of our mental health, and it won't really help. This is like very down the line, like
Yeah.
community and like
Yeah.
mental support. First, we actually need a safe place to live
Yeah.
and not to worry that we don't have money to survive here.
Yeah. So to repeat, we have shared with sponsor who has positions lined up and who does not. That request has been made. There's no need to do any additional organizing. What we're waiting for is a decision, and we will let you know as soon as that information is available.
And I will add that those who are between years have summer funding. So if you're between your first and second year, that should be covered, right? But if you're finishing your study program and you don't have a position lined up and funding does not become available to you, you need to have a backup plan. Because I know from being a researcher, from being a postdoc, that I know exactly what it's like to know my contract is going to end in June and I don't have a job lined up and I need to find a place to live. And there are a lot of other people on campus whose countries maybe are not in a war, but they're in the same position. They don't have finances ahead of them. But here's what they know and what you know too, which is on your campus, there's a lot you can get involved with now to plan for when June comes or May comes. If for whatever reason there's not funding available to you from IIE, from your contract that you're on now, you have to really fight hard and find stuff. And we're here to help you and network. And you have the advantage of being Fulbrighters and soon Fulbright alumni, which you need to be confident in as a huge asset, because as alumni, you also can go to job fairs with other alumni networks, US Alumni Association as well. And these are special places for recruiters who are looking for candidates, but you've got to be proactive and you've got to understand that you're on a contract. And when your contract ends, if it can't be renewed, there's not a lot we can really do to help you other than point you to networks and help you to really understand that you are empowered. You are, and we will help you to do that. But the finances, as we mentioned, are limited for our disposal. We are at the mercy of the decision of the budget makers, because they are finite contracts. They are contracts that end, and sometimes they can be renewed, sometimes they can be extended, but we don't have control over we can't get more funding out of nowhere. That is something that we advocate for, and we are actively, advocating for all of you, but we have to wait for the decision.
Jessica, I just want to mention that students between their first and second year never have summer funding. So they would rather apply for internship or scholarships. We know that 2 mask year scholarships were already approved. I received these notes from IE and from ECA, but what you can do between your first and second year, maybe that's not the best advice and the best solution. you can also try, Abby, correct me if I'm wrong, you can also try to discuss your further program with your academic advisors and with your IE advisors. And to take classes during your summer and then to shorten your study period, academic period, that won't be additional funding for you. But probably if your institution will allow you, you can take classes during 1, 2, 3 summer months, but then the end of your program will be not in May, next May, but will be March, in April. What I would also advise you to do, please try to find any scholarships, any internships you can, because we always support these requests for post-academic training. And we will try to support. Yesterday I received a request from ECA to have an approval from our office for request to extend post-academic degree training until the period of visa sponsorships. That's what we also usually do. We support any request from our students whenever we receive them. Again, that's the only way we can advise you on. I would also advise, as it was said by Jessica and Abby, I would also advise our FRDP visiting student researchers, young researchers, to try to discuss an opportunity of extending your research with your institutions, with your academic advisors. As I said to Olena Tanchik, to some probably others, we have several cases when your host institutions were very maybe supportive and prepared service documents and gave you an opportunity, gave our researchers, young researchers, to stay in the US from 3 to 6 months. They provided administrative support, they provided financial support, they provided, again, visa support. So that's also the case for some of you. If your research requires extension, if you have collaboration with your maybe American colleagues and professors, or you can teach, or they can invite you for teaching, researching, try to do this as well, because that's a big chance that you will give this support due to the situation, because all your academic advisors, all your institution know that you have no place to return. So I believe that they can be supportive in many cases. Sorry, that's the only thing we can do in this very, very difficult situation.
It's usually easier to get more time rather than more money. And after you get more time, you can get more money at the universities. If you're working at the university level, you need to ask them to extend your time, and then they will find the money, usually, if they have it. But to extend first from us the money and then ask for the time, it's harder, actually, because you're working in a different direction. So as Zina said, try to see if you can extend your time locally through your universities and your departments and see what they can offer.
And in the meantime, everyone's situation is slightly different. And I understand there's some desire to send out broad-based information about summer funding and all of that. But I would be remiss if I didn't say, stay in touch with your IIE advisor. Your concerns, your personal individual funding concerns, summer concerns, after program concerns are being actively shared with the Fulbright program sponsor in a very intentional way. And when you're in touch with your IIE advisor, it's helpful because then we are able to share the exact situation, exactly what you need for your individual situation. So thank you. I know you all have already been communicating robustly, and we will continue to provide guidance as we are provided it by Fulbright program sponsor.
All right, we are over time. So if anybody has any last questions, please feel free to contact us directly, reach out to us anytime. We're here, and thank you for being here today. I hope this was productive, and please be in touch.